How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts. This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. And today, we had a good show on the David Webb Show on SiriusXM Patriot Channel 125. And, yesterday, preparation for that show just got ahead of me, so we weren't able to have a show. But I'm having a short one tonight. It is Friday. I want you guys to go out and enjoy your Friday. So here's what you're going to need. You're going to need a tasty beverage. I've got mine in my Skull Cup. Corona Light. They should advertise through this show. And so you're going to need a tasty beverage for the Friday Night Toast. And you're going to have to share this show. If you're on Twitter, retweet it. If you're on Facebook, share it. On YouTube, I don't know what you do. And let's get this started. Tell people about the show. It's going to be a short show because I really just want to talk about one particular thing. And that's the media's hatred of Christianity and guns. Let's get it started. So, it's no surprise that the media and I'm watching this dog of mine. Every time I start this show, everybody that has dogs is going to know this. They start acting out as soon as you get on the phone or doing something. He's acting out right now. So anyway, like kids do the same thing. So people know that the media is increasingly become, it's always been kind of left-leaning, but it's become leftist. Just like California, I believe if California goes much further, we're going to have to go in and literally take over that government. I don't know. We haven't been faced with that in this country yet in over 240 years that we've been around. But California's government, as far as I'm concerned, is treasonous. And they have gone against the federal government far beyond what the Constitution lays out for the states to be self-ruling and self-governing. They've gotten to a point where they don't recognize the federal government at all. And they don't recognize the authority of the federal government. They don't recognize public safety. They don't recognize the Constitution and the sovereign nation that we are, and the importance of immigration policies, for instance. It's gotten to a point where they obstruct justice. They basically utilize special interests to divide the people. And then, like, for instance, where President Trump has changed the tax codes and where we're going to get, a certain amount of money back this year, California is adjusting their state taxes to suck that up. The people aren't even going to get that. And that's the way these communist type mentalities are. It's gone so far. I was watching, I believe it's Tucker Carlson a little while ago, where there was a Republican representative from California was saying that the people really are completely shocked by this. And I hope if you're liberal that you are not comfortable with what's going on in the California government. Well, the media is the same way. The media will lie. They will say, like, they just. A lot of times it's lies, but once a narrative gets spun up, as I talked about today on the David Webb Show on SiriusXM Patriot Channel, it used to have to take a while after breaking news for the facts would start coming out as soon as they started reporting breaking news, because they didn't really have the time to manipulate it. What they've done now is, as the news is breaking, they're already formulating it into, as they report it, into a narrative. And as we saw down in Florida, we had these students who were obviously trained long before they're activists. They, David Hogg and that other girl, Gonzalez, they're trained activists. And I'm not saying they're actors. I think I don't even want to go down that road, but they're definitely trained activists. Gonzalez is the head of the LGBT whatever club, and David Hogg, obviously his father hates was a former FBI agent that hates the government, hates Trump anyway, hates Republicans and conservatives, and so these people were trained before they even found the guy, the shooter. They were already on TV. Not talking about, oh my gosh, this is crazy, this is that. They were sitting on there already talking about the NRA and getting guns out of the hands of American people. The sheriff, same way. So what they've done is the media is now shifted to the point where they don't even have to wait for the facts to come in before they manipulate them. They literally manipulate them as they come in. And because they've already, I believe, forward thought all these things and forward thought all these types of incidents that could happen. They did a threat assessment, I believe. I don't know what you would want to call it in their circumstances, but I think the media and all these activists and these big money donors have forward thought what types of incidents are going to happen. They know there's going to be mass shootings. How do they know that? You don't have to be a wizard to figure it out when we have increased psychotropic drugs being prescribed that aren't really tested, I don't think, and are increasing the levels of psychopathic behavior. Even when they're treating depression, it ends up causing a violent behavior. We have that increasing, and at the same time we have zero security in the schools, in the malls, in outside stadium and arenas and special events. Even your workplace, if you work in a tall building, you may not be able to get in that building. It may be a hardened target, but when 20, 30,000 people are leaving a building at the same time at 5 o'clock, it's a pretty soft target. Nobody's doing anything to stop or to harden that area until the people disperse. So The media knows these things are going to happen again. The special interest people, they know it's going to happen again. The big money criminal donors, the leftists and the globalists in this country, they know these things are going to happen, so they're prepared for it. They train young people, young adults for this. And so that's why you see this stuff happening so quick. But I found a soundbite today. It was on Tucker Carlson's show just a little while ago. And I was getting ready to start the show, and I was like, holy crap, that is probably the best group of sound bites that I've heard in a long time. Very short and explains exactly the hatred that spews from the leftists in this country. Remember, if you're liberal and you're watching the show, I'm not working you into this. I'm telling you, you need to realize this and stop following the Democratic Party and these crazies and stop believing what they say. I want to stand with you. I don't believe myself in conservative and liberal, or in liberal and conservative. I don't believe in your sexuality defining who you are, the color of your skin defining who you are, or any of this stuff. I believe you define who you are. And I believe if you look for effective solutions and that's what you want fairness and you want opportunity and you want to care about people and love your neighbor. Hey, listen. That's not conservative or liberal. Believe it or not, that's Christianity. And that's what Jesus talked about. But I'm not here to try to convert you into Christianity. You know, you should take a look at it. I'm not going to lie. But I'm talking about the government here and the media. And liberals, if you term yourself liberal or an activist, you need to look at this, the reality of what's going on here. I'm going to play the soundbite. Jimmy Kimmel, starts off with Jimmy Kimmel, who I think should be punched right in the face for the crap that he says, but also for the sheer fact that he used his own child's illness to turn this in. At first I thought, Jimmy Kimmel and his kid has a heart problem and he was very emotional. I thought, you know what? I hate this healthcare stuff going on too. I was on par with what he said. And then he came back and then he cries again. And then he cries again. Every time something happens and he goes out and tries to turn it political, he starts to act, he's got crocodile tears. When you have a stage as big as he does and he does that, man, I'd love to straighten that guy out. Van Jones is another one from CNN, needs a severe throat punch. And Christine Amanpour. There's several other people in here. I've been in the makeup room at CNN when she was in the makeup chair. It was like an atmosphere suck was in the room, like a drain of atmosphere. The ego that woman has, and she believes that she is so intelligent and worldly. When it fascinates me with somebody like her who can go all around the world, report on all these worlds, see all these atrocities, and yet instead of her mind becoming broader and understanding and wiser in a godly way, her brain becomes smaller and smaller and more leftist and more globalist and more communist in the words that spew out of her mouth. You would think it would be the other way around, but it's not. She finishes it up with probably the greatest soundbite, and I got to hand it to Fox News and Tucker Carlson for putting this out there. It is unbelievable. So let's play this. This is what they're saying about, it has to do with guns, but you watch how they milk. They're not talking about anything that has to do with securing the schools or fixing the schools or stopping shooting, none of that. They're going to equate the NRA to the KKK and blame Christians. Listen to this.
Force these allegedly Christian men and women stuff their pockets with money from the NRA year after year after year to do something now.
So many thousands of people are dying every year.
Listen to that again. This is Jimmy Kim. This is crazy.
Force these allegedly Christian men and women stuff their pockets with money from the NRA.
Allegedly Christian men and women who stuff their pockets with money from the NRA. Now, I don't know if Jimmy Kimmel in all his wisdom realizes there's 5 million people that belong to the NRA, and it's growing rapidly thanks to you all. Thanks to those weirdos that we're listening to. They're convincing people, liberal and conservative, to join the NRA. It is a lobby for the Second Amendment. That's all it is. but he's equating it to a tool for quote-unquote supposed Christians who stuff their pockets with their money. I haven't gotten paid by the NRA. Has anybody gotten paid by the NRA? Listen, they lobby. They're a lobbying firm. That's what they do. And they do it quite well. And if it wasn't for the NRA, let's be honest, does the NRA go over the top at times? Of course they do. But listen, if you don't, with these people, these leftists in government, they will take the Second Amendment away. And without the Second Amendment, you don't have any of the other rights. That's what separates our country. You not only have these rights, these God-given rights, but God granted you through the Constitution the ability to defend yourself against a government that would take your rights. That's what it's all about. Listen to this again, Jimmy Kimmel.
Force these allegedly Christian men and women who stuff their pockets with money from the NRA year after year after year to do something now.
So many thousands of people are dying every year for this so-called liberty.
You have a whole generation
For this so-called liberty. I don't even know what that fool's name is. It's called the Second Amendment. It's called a right. And we have it so, as I just said, so we can defend against government that wants to take away or eliminate or limit the rest of our rights. Because ultimately, look, you can't do anything about this. It's human behavior. You look at 5-year-olds in a sandbox. You put one toy in there, and eventually somebody's going to pick that toy up. They may not even be interested in it at all, but once somebody picks it up, everybody else is going to want it, and then it's going to start being a case of who's the most dominant. When you put people in a position of power in government, inevitably nefarious, criminal, leftist, control-hungry, power-hungry people will come in there and try to take the freedom of others. It is inevitable. It's never not been the case in history since Cain and Abel, since Adam and Eve. Why do you think Adam and Eve did what they did? Because Satan himself wanted control. He believes he is God. And he convinced these two human beings to eat of the apple and lie to God. Now, that's a whole nother thing we can go into, but it's from the very beginning, these liars have existed, and they are direct descendants of Satan himself. And so this person who's saying this so-called liberty,
you have a whole generation of young people who essentially see the NRA as their enemy. To them, the NRA is like the KKK.
So you have Jimmy Kimmel talking about supposed Christians somehow getting paid by the NRA. You have this other moron who's talking about some supposed liberty, talking about the Second Amendment. Now you have Van Jones, of course, CNN. They're going to put a guy with dark skin is going to come out there and equate the NRA to the KKK. Give me a freaking break. I hope you're not buying into this, America. If you haven't shared this show, share it. Or retweet it. Do what you got to do. The numbers are low. Let's get them up.
There's some hostile force that is against them that's risking their lives. The Bible warns.
So, according to Van Jones, the NRA is that young people see the NRA as the KKK and a hostile force.
KKK is just some hostile force that is against them that's risking their lives.
That is against them, that is risking their lives. I don't know how they believe that the NRA, I mean, it's a lobbying firm. You didn't see them. Look, there's lobbyists for all these chemical companies. They're not calling those people Satan or the KKK when they're literally killing people because they go and like dump their chemicals in the water up north and do all these different things. You don't see the media going after them. They'll cover that story shortly and that's it. That has nothing to do with the Constitution. Those are criminals. In this case, they're just absolutely going after NRA for this reason. Now, here's the biggest one out of all of them. I'm so glad they did this soundbite the way they did.
Warns us not to worship false gods. And yet it does seem that...
Okay, so what she's saying there is that the Bible tells us not to worship false gods. That's what Christian Amanpour, probably one of the most leftist people in media, somebody who is an ego vacuum, who will suck the freaking atmosphere right out of a room when she walks in it, a bitter, nasty human being.
That is against them, that's risking their lives.
The Bible warns us not to worship false gods, and yet it does seem that much of America is indeed worshiping at the altar of the gun gods.
The gun gods. Well, that's not true. We're not worshiping gun gods. What we are is understanding of the Constitution, which I'm not even sure if she's an American citizen. She should shut her mouth anyway because she doesn't know what she's talking about. The rest of these people. Van Jones is probably one of the most racist, idiotic people on television. He fits right in with CNN. Jimmy Kimmel, I don't know if that dude's on drugs or what, but that's what happens when you give an idiot a show. And look, Jimmy Kimmel's a funny guy. I'm going to give him that. But you can give a clown a show, and they in the circus they call him a clown because he gets paint. He has paint on his face. Jimmy Kimmel wiped the paint off his face. He got a TV show, and people automatically think that he knows what he's talking about. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't even understand the Constitution. He's an idiot. He's an actor. He's a clown. I hope that I'm going to play that soundbite one more time, the whole thing, and I'm going to sit here and I want it. If you're a Christian, if you believe in the Constitution, if you're not a Christian and you believe in the Constitution, if you're not a Christian or you are a Christian, you should believe in the Constitution if you're American. But if you're liberal or conservative, you need to listen, take all that stuff and set it to the side for a second. Listen to this again with zero judgment in your heart. I want you to hear the narrative, and I want you to hear exactly how. Listen, this is a comedy show. This is two different news networks, and they're all saying the exact same thing, one of them being a politician, the rest of them being anchors and contributors. This goes from Hollywood to New York to Washington, D.C. Listen to this narrative and understand this is true unification of the far left globalists in this country. This is what's not happening with the rest of the citizenry. We're not unified. Listen.
Force these allegedly Christian men and women who stuff their pockets with money from the NRA year after year after year to do something now.
So many thousands of people are dying every year for this so-called liberty.
You have a whole generation of young people who essentially see the NRA as their enemy. To them, the NRA is like the KKK. It's just some hostile force that is against them, that's risking their lives.
The Bible warns us not to worship false gods, and yet it does seem that much of America is indeed worshiping at the altar of the gun gods.
I hope that, like Jesus said when he was on the steps of the temple, when he overturned the money changers' tables and whipped them, and his disciples remembered that he said his love for God burned in him like a fire. I hope that you remember this if you're Christian. And in fact, I hope that the love of the Constitution and the country that you live in that gives you your freedom is burning in your heart just as hard. Without that Constitution, you wouldn't be free to be Christian. You wouldn't be free to be atheist. You wouldn't be free to be Jewish. You wouldn't be free to be Muslim. You wouldn't be free. And if it wasn't for the specific right of being able to bear arms, you would never be able to defend your freedoms against government that ultimately will try to take it from you. It has never not been the case. No matter how the government started out, eventually there will be people that will weasel. They're psychopaths. This is what they do. They will weasel their way to the top and steal your freedom. And in fact, many times they don't even steal it. In the case of Russia, in the case of half this country, they just give it away. I hope that sinks in tonight. Well, on that note, heavy note, I do want to end real quick with thanks to everybody for working hard. See, the last I checked, let's see here, the book has climbed back up to number 529. Now, it was 505, which means it's already starting to fall a little bit. You got to get on there, folks. Listen, I did the work going on David Webb's show, hosting for 3 hours, pushing this out, making the memes, going on handy. I'm doing this show every night. We've got to get this book to number one. We are literally 500 places out of 8 million books on Amazon's bestseller list. We are literally 500 places from being number one. I was as high as number 11 before it started to trickle down. We have the opportunity to share this truth with America. If you have read it, go on Amazon and put a review on there to let people know. Don't just put it's a great thing. Bought it for my husband. Don't put that on there. Spend a few seconds and tell people how important this book is. Then tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your clergymen, tell your congressmen, senators, mayors, chiefs of police, sheriffs. Somebody needs to be beating Sheriff Scott Israel over the brow with this book I don't mean that metaphorically, so he gets it. Or, I mean, what am I saying? He needs to be gone. That guy needs to be in jail is what he needs. He'll never get it. That's like trying to tell Debbie Wasserman Schultz about Christianity or conservatism. It ain't going to work. So anyway, but we do need to get this book to as many people as possible. So continue to push this. We're on the way up. We got to keep this momentum going. The other thing I want to say real quick is thank you to everybody for sticking with me again. We learned a valuable lesson when Nina was on. I want to just cover that again real quick. You know, when she came on, she's a Muslim, but she's a millennial, but she's pro-Second Amendment. I brought her on, and I was upset for the way some people reacted and treated her. I want to make sure that you realize this week why that bothered me so much. Because if you go over to Twitter and you try to espouse the importance of the things that I just talked about tonight, you're going to have trolls that don't care. They're just going to attack you. You all are smarter than this. You show up here every night. You're a part of the CQRF, the Constitutional Quick Reaction Force, and I expect you to sit down and have open dialogue when there is an opportunity to have it. It doesn't mean you got to go down the road of questioning people. Let them lead. Let them say, I feel strong about the Second Amendment. Well, let's talk about that. And then later on, you can ask them questions about, like with Nina, why she wears a hijab or how she feels about Sharia law, which she hates, and so on and so forth. We cannot be troll-like. It is of the utmost importance that the American citizenry, especially the conservatives, travel the high road. And that's what we need to do. All right, let's go to the Truth Zone, and I'm going to get out of here. Remember, keep pushing that book. Don't just shut this computer off and forget. Your goal, our goal, is to get this book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, to number one. We've got to get it to number one. It will take on its own momentum if we get the book to number one on Amazon's bestseller list. Trust me when I tell you this. If you haven't called your local paper and told them about it, do it. If you haven't called or written Fox News and told them they need to get this on there, do it. We should have 80, 90 people doing it tonight. 100. If you haven't called your local radio show or TV station, do it. This is what people need to be talking about, not the Second Amendment. Let's go to the Truth Zone. All right. I hope you have a frosty beverage. Not everybody has a Skull Cup. So here's what I want to say. I want to raise a toast to Reverend Billy Graham and to his family. I got to tell you, folks, I watched that part of that today when I was at the studio at Sirius after I got off. And his kids, man, I'll tell you, it's one thing I really like about Donald Trump. I may not like Jared Kushner, but I met Donald Trump Jr., great guy, and his kids love him. Well, the same thing with Billy Graham's kids. They love their dad. They love their mom. I mean, there's no better testament of who you are than that. I know I love my mom. She's my rock. She's my example. My stepdad, Jim, an amazing man, who both of them are just selfless in the way that they help other people still in their 70s. I don't know if I was supposed to tell everybody that, Mom. But I raise a toast to Billy Graham for all that he did, and you never saw him pull a Tammy Faye Baker or look cheesy. He always carried himself like an old-fashioned evangelist, not a televangelist, like an old-style preacher. And so I raise my toast to Billy Graham and to all the other preachers that are out there that are not looking for fame or glory. My Uncle Freddie, unbelievable example to his kids as well. People who their goal is to save souls and to be a servant to God. And that's the way we should all be. You don't have to be a preacher in order to do that. So I raise a toast to them, to God. One thing I do want to say is that Billy Graham's son said something about how Billy Graham said once that when I die, you're going to be told that I'm dead. Don't believe it, because I'm more alive now than I ever was before. I've been saying that same thing, never knowing about that quote from Billy Graham. I've been saying it for a long time. When you lose a dog or any other thing that's had the breath of life breathed into it, know this: it will never be, it will die, but it will never be dead. Life continues in the presence of God, one way or another. Here's to all the preachers, here's to all the truth tellers, here's to all the parents that do it right. Let's see if I can. I can't balance it, never mind. There you go. All right. That's all. God bless you. Have a great Friday. It's been a long week. Continue to push this book. Continue to push the CQRF. Continue to push this show and the GoFundMe page. Don't forget about that. I've got your books. I'm going to get those books to you. Forgive me for procrastination for those people who have donated $50 or more on the GoFundMe page. You mean the world to me. Don't think that you don't. I just have a lot going on. I'm not in the position where I got some kind of helper helping me out. I'm Jonathan Gillum. My old buddy Rico's over there whining about something. This is The Experts. And remember, wherever you see this face, wherever you hear this voice, wherever the CQRF is at, as they grow and get stronger, the truth has arrived. Have a great weekend, everybody. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
It's Friday night and I ain't got nobody. I got some money 'cause I just got paid.